Hi everyone, it's Kyle from Regrettable Props, and today we're working on another tutorial for the Lawbringer armor. Today we're going to be working on the shins, the kneecaps, and the foot armor. So once you've printed out your templates, which can be found in the description where it'll take you to a link to where to purchase them, you're going to print them all out and tape all the pieces together. So you're going to have something like this, and then you're going to cut out the individual sections of the template. Once you have that done, this is what they're going to look like. Remember, when cutting out the templates, you're going to be provided one half of them, so you're going to need to flip it for the other half of your armor piece. So for the shins, you want to make sure you do that as well when you flip it to get the other shin, because you're going to have one half of the template for the right side, and then you just need to flip it over for the left side. So once we have these pieces traced out onto our foam, I'm using 5mm floor mat foam, which can be found throughout various stores, Walmart, Home Hardware, Hobby Lobby, or any craft foam providers that you may have. These are the pieces you're going to have. And on each template piece is going to lay out, there's going to be some hash marks so you know where to line each piece up. Some additional circles are going to be where you could put some faux rivets, and marked out on each template is where you need to do some 45-degree cuts. Everywhere else that isn't labeled with something different is going to be a 90-degree cut, but if it's labeled with a 45-degree cut, you want to make sure you do it on one side of the template for, let's say, your left shin, and then you want to do it on one side of the template piece for your right shin or your right kneecap, etc. And I add some additional lines on the outside of the template pieces, and these are where we're going to be using a grinding stone bit with a Dremel to add some indentation, and some additional lines where we're going to be adding some additional 2mm foam to the shin pieces. Now for the kneecap pieces, you want to follow the same process, tracing out your templates onto your foam of choosing, and then cutting where you need the 90 degrees, and then where it's been marked out for 45-degree cut to be done on one side, you want to make sure you do that for the appropriate sections. For this lower part of the kneecap part, you want to flip it over so you have it matching symmetrical, and there's going to be a V cut done on the back side, and there's some additional lines to show where these pieces are stacked up for the lower portion of the kneecap. For the back half of the shin pieces, we're going to glue them together using some hot glue, or you can use contact cement, but what I use is hot glue because that's what's readily available, and the contact cement brands near me are pretty crappy, and drop and barge is about 50 to 60 bucks just to ship to Canada. So in the meantime, I'm going to be using hot glue. So you're going to work slowly in sections since there is a bit of a slight curve, and you want to make sure you have a clean seam. And for the front shin piece, you want to follow the same process. Since one side is a 45-degree cut, the other side has a 90-degree cut. You want to glue at the very bottom, and if you have hash marks, which I laid out on some of the pieces, you want to make sure you have those indented or marked in, so that way you know where to correctly lay out each piece for gluing it together. For the kneecap, it's going to be the same process. You can choose to preheat this a little bit to make it easier to curve and glue together, but it's going to be the same process as the shin and the front and back of the shin, gluing one side, slowly working up in small increments until it's glued together. Once we have that glued, we're going to glue the sections that have the V grooves on the back or front of them, and you glue them using some hot glue to fill in those areas and hold them in place until they've cooled down. This top trim piece, we're going to glue along that 45-degree edge and hot glue it to the top of the kneecap piece, and do the same for the other side and hold it there till it's cooled. Now we're going to have those V groove pieces that we had, they're going to be stacked and hot glued together first before we connect them to the round portion of the kneecap. This part's going to be a little bit finicky and require a bit more work on your part, being careful when you do the glue up to make sure it correctly glues along the bottom edge. So you're going to want to make sure you work on one side first, and then wait till it fully cools, and then bend it into shape to glue along the other edge. Moving on, we're going to be gluing these outside pieces that flare out to have some additional V grooves on the top of them. We're going to be connecting them on the outside for each kneecap. Each kneecap part is going to have them on the opposite side. So for the left side of the kneecap, this piece that flares outward then it curls back in to be rounded on the outside like that is going to go on the left side for your left kneecap, and then for your right kneecap it's going to be on the right side. And the smaller D looking piece is going to be glued on the inside of your kneecap. And once you have those both glued in, this is what it's going to look like. Right now I'm just translating on the marks for where those circles are for the faux rivets, which we are going to use googly eyes onto the knee and shin portion of this armor build. Now one last additional piece that we're adding to the front of the shins on the top line in the middle is some 2mm foam, about 3mm in width. There is no template for it, so just cut it out in about 3mm of width and then just glue it onto this top portion. Now into dremeling, we're going to be using a grinding stone, or you could also use a sanding drum, and we're going to be smoothing out and rounding those outside edges, and we're going to help this make appear a less cartoonish and more metal-like, since we want this to achieve as much of a metal finish as possible. So we're going to be smoothing out those outside edges, smoothing out any seams or rough areas, and then we're going to be using the grinding cone bit to follow the outside lines. And for the lower additional line that's added to the front of the shin piece, we're going to want to do an additional groove line for that section. And make sure you are wearing safety glasses and at least a dust mask when doing this, since you are burning the foam and you don't want to get any of the dust from the foam in your lungs. Once we've done all the pieces using the Dremel, we're going to use some googly eyes to act as faux rivets and apply them to all the areas that had circles marked out on either the shin or the kneecap piece. Now to clean up some of the seams that we may have occurred when gluing these pieces together, we're going to use Quick Seal, which is a water-based caulking. We're going to apply it over all the areas that you want to fill in. You're going to need to possibly do 2 to 3 coats. You want to make sure you do it in thin layers and wait for it to fully dry. If you do, apply it in thick coats. And to smooth it out, you want to use some water and to wipe up some excess once you're finished applying it. Now to seal the foam for painting, we're going to be using Modge Podge. I have black paint added to give a good base coat for covering up the foam, making sure it's all uniform in color, as well as helping the metal shine and look much better once we move on to that process. So we're going to be applying the same metal that we've used for the rest of the armor pieces so far, and a lighter paint of silver and metal applied using a chippy wide fan brush haphazardly across the foam. And then to tie all the steps of painting together, we apply a black wash all of the foam pieces and then wiping away the excess. Now for the foot coverings, very simple. There's going to be a left and right side of the template. You're going to want to trace it out. The rectangular piece, you want to trace it out 2 to 3 times. It is marked down. I don't remember off the top of my head. And once you have that trace out, you're going to cut them out, all 90-degree cuts. You can choose to round the corners using a Dremel. Same process as we do for the rest of the pieces, adding additional bow damage of your choosing. But once you have that all done, this is what it's going to look like. I decided to preheat those pieces a little bit, that way they fit the contour of my shoe. I just used some brown leather shoes that I have. You guys might use running shoes, whatever it has. I'm finding that since I'm using actual shoes, they're going to be a lot more comfortable than something I may have to mock up and make. So we're going to add some additional black webbing to secure each piece to keep its location while it's strapped onto the shoe. So we're going to cut out some black webbing pieces, hot glue it onto the back, allow for some movement but not a whole lot so it still stays overlapped. And then to secure it to the shoe, we're going to use a elastic band that's white, but I'm going to paint it brown so it's not as distinct and looks more like leather. Now for the strapping for the kneecap piece and the shins, I'm going to use some leather from a pair of shorts that we're going to get donated. You can use pleather, vinyl, black webbing, whatever you so choose. I cut out some strips approximately 1 inch in width. There is no template since it's going to be based on your preference. I secured it to one side of the kneecap piece with some hot glue, figured it out where I needed to have it connect on the other side, and decided to have it be an adjustable connection, which I used some Velcro to make it easier to take it on and off. For the shins, I secured the front and backs using some elastic, the same elastic that I used to wrap around my boot coverings, so that way there's a little bit of stretch to allow them to wrap around easier around your shin when putting them on. That way one side is secure and you don't have to worry about focusing on the air. For my attachment preferences, I decided on using 3 straps of leather to wrap around the outside to secure the shin pieces. I didn't focus on trying to use Velcro, since Velcro would probably come off with some movement of you walking and your leg muscle expanding and such.
and the fabric rubbing up and down from your legs, so I felt like that wouldn't be a strong enough connection. So I used 3 pieces of the leather, 1 inch wide, cut them in long strips, figured out how much they needed to be when they were tied around my shin, and if there was any additional excess, I either left it on or cut it off, so that way I could have just enough to do a bow tie to keep it in place. And there you guys have it. To wrap it off, I sealed the foam armor pieces in a gloss Rust-oleum gloss finish, and I do apologize if my voice sounds a little bit monotone, raspy, or different than normal. I am sick. I've been trying to get this out this week, but I felt like I needed to get it out for those who have purchased the templates. Once again, the materials and link to the templates are going to be within the description. I hope you guys were able to follow along with the tutorial. If you guys have any questions or need any further clarification about the build, please post any comments on YouTube or on Facebook. I'll try and get back to them as soon as possible. If not, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, were able to follow along. Leave a like if you enjoyed it, dislike if not, and subscribe if you want to stay tuned for more cosplaying tutorials. I'm going to be finishing up this Lawbringer tutorial series very soon, so don't worry about that. We're going to be moving on to some Fortnite stuff. Hit the bell, that way you get notified right away, because YouTube's algorithm is a little bit funky nowadays. Anyways, this has been Kyle from Regrettable Props, and I hope you guys have a good day. Bye.